Hello and welcome to episode 559 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP. Join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak, who you can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going very well, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Must have only been a day or two since the last time I was on a podcast with you.
Well, I was pretty crook last week, so we couldn't record last week, and we had like scheduling issues, which makes it sound really like that we're movers and shakers, hey?
Yeah, like we're really important.
Yeah.
I think on one day we organised to have the episode, and I might have fallen asleep with my boy on the lounge.
Yeah, there was one day I fell asleep as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, very important things that we had to do.
I'll be honest too, we're having a bit of a truth session. There might have been one of the days there where I probably could have made the effort to send you a message and say, you know what, I'm about to do a podcast now, but I was in the middle of a race on Gran Turismo and I went, nah.
That's fair enough.
I'm a chance of winning this thing.
That's fair enough.
Priorities.
So we are going to do a few things today. Let's start off with some emails, hey?
This sounds fantastic.
Okay, so we've got one here from James, and it says, unlucky team of the 1990s. Hey, boys, if you had to pick which is the most unlucky team of the New South Wales /ARL/NRL team of the 90s, and I guess he's talking about like which ones we choose, and he'd say, here's some notes that you don't need, but I'm providing anyway. St. George lose 3 grand finals and forced to merge with / take over with Illawarra. That's pretty good. When you add it into the merger, it's a pretty good one, I think.
Yeah, it's not them.
It's not them.
No.
I think we both know who it's going to be. North Sydney.
Yep.
Being a consistent bridesmaid in the finals, never reached the grand final and eventually forced into the Northern Eagles merger and ultimate demise.
Yeah, because of rain.
Yeah, because it rained. Penrith derailing in 1992 after the death of Ben Alexander, the shockwaves of that resulting in significant departures from the club and not recovering until the next decade.
I was going to say, on the Penrith one.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people will put a lot of weight on the Ben Alexander stuff, and don't get me wrong, it did have a massive impact.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you look away from that and you look at the roster that Penrith had, it was aging.
Yeah.
And they were going to be on a bit of a downturn anyway. Mm-hmm. Plus, you then had that amazing Broncos team was getting stronger.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's. I think people can be a bit remiss to ignore the issues that Penrith had with their roster there, and to just say, "Oh, it's all because of Ben Alexander's death." Not saying his death didn't have a role, because it did have a massive, massive impact, and it can't be understated. Yeah. But it's not the sole reason. I think too often it's regarded as being the sole reason.
Yeah, there was it was, if anything, it was probably like with everything that had happened, and then that happened as well, and that was like it was a lot of different things, and that was sort of a hammer blow, obviously. But yeah, and I guess it was a little bit different back then too, in that like Penrith had been trying to build up and stuff, and they, like as you say, they brought in some players that were veteran players to get them to that next level, and they did that. And yeah, it was it probably, I think the thing is that they fell off so quickly, which they probably wouldn't have happened as quickly had there been one or two things that hadn't occurred.
That's right. And look, when I say they were an older team, it's worth noting too that in those days, being 30 years old was pretty old.
Yeah.
I think Royce Simmons retired at the age of 31.
Yeah.
He was an old 31.
And look, one of the biggest things that occurred was that the coach negotiated with the best player at the team at the time in the mid-90s to go to the Roosters, along with a centre called Matt Singh, who was an Origin quality player as well. And that was a huge hammer blow. And they basically, after that happened, they had to rebuild completely. And they did to a certain extent, but it took them a little while.
Yeah, imagine how much they could have done if they could have been able to run for 4 or 5 more years with Fittler and Carter in the halves, for example.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
Greg Alexander still there in good form.
Yeah, and then you get Craig Gower coming in, who I'm not his biggest fan, but he was an all right player. And then Ryan Girdler's developing out in the centres. They'd got him from Illawarra, and so that gutted the team.
Yeah.
So
Thanks,
the last
Phil.
one, he's fuck him. So the last one he has Manly, possibly the most consistent team of the 90s to get to the least out of it.
They were just chokers.
They also ran into some. I mean, that Newcastle loss in '97 was kind of a special event sort of thing,
Yeah.
Anyway, he says made it to the finals 8 years of the '90s, 3 minor premierships in a row, lost 2 grand finals, eventually merged into the Northern Eagles. Obviously had success, but could have and should have won more. And he says he's not a Manly fan, by the way. And he says, would like your thoughts, James. It's hard. Look, it's hard to go past North Sydney. They were really, really good in the regular season. And then you'd get to the finals and they'd normally have one really good finals game. And then the next game, they would shit the bed. And yeah, it's got to be North Sydney, especially when you throw in like they were strong team, and then died. That's just basically how they went. So
Yeah, I mean, 1993, it's kind of where the unluckiness sort of stuff happened, where it began. They missed out on the top 5 there, comfortably, by the way. But they finished 6th that year when it was the top 5. And then for the next few years, they were in the finals. Just trying to get some details here. Let's have a look. 1994, they were 2nd on the ladder, just 1 point behind the Bulldogs, who were minor premiers. And then they played Canberra in the first week of the finals.
Yeah.
And lost. They beat Brisbane by 1 point in the second game, and then they lost to Canberra in the second time around. That's just unfortunate. You played the premiers twice in the finals. That's just rough. 95, what happened there? They were 8th. They just snuck in on points difference. Mind you, the points difference, they were miles ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the other thing that got them up was the fact that Auckland were deducted 2 points for breaching the replacement rule. And if they hadn't have done that, they would have finished on 26 points and would have pushed North out of the finals.
The curse of Gene Namu.
That's the one. And what did North do in the finals that year? They lost to Newcastle in the first week of the finals, and that was the end of them there. 96, they were 3rd on the ladder. 2 wins behind Manly, who were 1st. And they beat Brisbane in the first week of the finals and then lost to St George in the second week of the finals. And St George went on to lose the grand final to Manly. 97, I think, is when they started to have a bit of a downturn, although they finished 4th. But this is where I think they started to...
I think this is when it was the year that it was like, are you choker? Yeah, you're chokers, aren't you?
Yeah, this is the one where everyone was thinking, right, this is, as we say in nowadays terms, this is like your premiership window. Bloody good squad. They lost to the Roosters in the first week of the finals. They beat Parramatta in the second week and then lost to Newcastle in the third week. But, I mean, who have they got in their squad here? Gary Larson, Greg Florimo, Darren Fritz, David Fairley, Jason Taylor, Billy Moore, Josh Stewart, Britton Pomeroy, Steve Trindle, Danny Williams, everyone remember him, Michael Butner, Matt Sears, Brett Dallas, Ben Eichen. That's a pretty damn handy squad.
It is, but it's also like you go through those players. It is also a squad of like, how many, between all of them, how many finals moments did they have? And it's probably none.
Yeah. 1998, first year of the NRL, and they made it to the finals and lost to Parramatta in week 1, then lost to the Bulldogs in week 2. And then I think 99 they had to start playing their home games everywhere else, and they dropped way down. They're playing at North Sydney still, but they lost a lot of games. They finished 14th or 15th on the ladder.
Well, the thing was, that was the year they were supposed to be on the Central Coast, and they weren't. And so all of their plans, just fell apart.
Yeah. I thought they were playing home games at Lang Park in one of these things. They did.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they played one home game at Suncorp. So what happened is because they knew, right now we're seeing it. So because they knew that the home ground wasn't going to be ready, basically the first 12 weeks of the season were all flipped so that they were all away games for them, bar round 1 against West, which was played at Parramatta, round 3 against the Cowboys, which was played at Suncorp, and round 9 against Canberra was played at Stadium Australia. Other than that, every other game they played in those first 12 weeks was an away game. And when it got to the fact that it was, that's the halfway point of the year done, they went, they've got to play home games now. Is it okay if you just go back to North Sydney Stadium? And they're like, oh. So by round 12, they'd won 4 games, lost 7 and had a bye. So I was sitting there 12th.
And they were getting to be an old team by then too.
Yeah. So they came back to North Sydney Oval in round 13 and absolutely fucking flogged Balmain 64-12. And everyone thought, oh, they're back. And then they won 3 games for the rest of the year. And that was it. They were done.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And now they're back.
Well, fuck. We need to actually have an episode on the Bears. One episode on the actual North Sydney Bears and, their entire history. And then another episode on the not quite North Sydney Bears and the entire history of the Bears trying to get reinstated in some other incantation. Because they're almost the same length careers now.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's crazy. The Bears have been out of the competition for longer than the Illawarra Steelers were part of the competition.
Yes.
That gets lost on a lot of people. There's teams that... It was funny. We've got another email coming up, but while we're talking about Norths. So they're going to be entered into the competition. That's going to be made official on Thursday. The Western Australia government come to the table with some funding and stuff like that because rugby league's short of money. We need government funding. And one of the things that was pushed out this week was that, we've been inundated by South African rugby union players that want to play for the club, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if I said to you, listen, Andrew, there's this new rugby union team that's been made in South Africa, and it is going to have a giant impact on rugby union in Australia. You'd be like, what?
How?
Yeah. So why would it work the other way around in a different sport? It's just the dumbest shit ever.
Oh, I don't know, man. There's so much delusion there.
There really is. And then the other thing is it'll be a big shot in the arm for rugby league in South Africa. It's first of all, rugby league in South Africa is controlled by rugby union. That's the first thing you need to know. And the second thing is we've been down this pathway over and over again. There's nothing's going on there. There's nothing happening. Rugby league doesn't exist there. And the third thing is have a look at the state of the South African nation, mate. It's on the verge of becoming a FUD state. South Africa is not the future of rugby league.
No, I mean, as we've known for 3 decades now, it's China.
It is 100% China.
When are we going to start putting a team over there? Why can't we have the Chinese Bears?
It's a good question. Imagine that. That'd be so easy. Chinese Bears, make it a panda bear.
I mean, that's a win.
Would you go a panda bear or a red panda bear? One of the red pandas.
It needs to be something with a bit of mongrel.
Well, that's not a panda bear. Panda bears are dumb.
What if they're hungry?
Yeah, they're still dumb. Panda bears are basically a less tough version of a koala bear. Koalas will breed to save themselves. Pandas won't.
Oh, hang on. I've done a Google search.
Okay.
Tahitian brown bears have been considered the most dangerous species on the entire Tibet Plateau because they not only kill livestock but also damage houses and injure people.
Okay.
There we go.
What about sun bears? Sun bears in China?
I don't know.
Sun bears are pretty aggressive.
I'm happy for them to be called the brown bears.
Brown bears, I guess brown bears I don't think are in China. I know a lot about bears because I look up a lot of bear attack stuff, hey?
Fair enough. I mean, I'm happy for them to go with we'll have a team called the Tibetan Brown Bears.
Yeah, why not?
We were a country that was,
Don't. Don't. I like being alive, Andrew. Don't.
Anyway, any other emails?
Okay, so we've got one here from one of our wonderful listeners called Nui Ash. How's it going, Nui Ash? And his subject is the World Cup. He sent this in a couple of weeks ago. I sent him an email saying we hadn't forgot it. We'll definitely bring it up in our next episode. He says, with Samoan heritage players increasingly making themselves available for Samoa, do you foresee any potential World Cup final matchups beside Australia versus Samoa? And he puts together a potential team. So he's got Tabadai Fido at fullback, Brian Ta'o on one wing, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck or Isaiah Tongo. Murray Tuilagi as the other winger, Stephen Crichton as one centre, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck or Isaac Tungor as the centres, Jerome Luai and Chanel Harris-Tavita as the halves, Payne Haas and Stefano Ikamanu as the props, Aaron Clark as the hooker, Jeremiah Nanai and Ola Kawatu as the back rower with Fasamala Aoi as the lock. And then he's got Asafa Solomona, Spencer Lenu, Luciano Leilua, and Jazz Tavanga on the bench. That is a really, really strong team that he's just named there.
Is there someone other than Leilua we can put there? Just to make it stronger?
Yeah, he's one of those sorts of players. It probably is.
Yeah.
It probably is. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
Anyone from the age of 12 over will be fine.
Did he have... Yeah, he had Spencer Lenu in there. Anyway, he says the days of them having reserve grade Milford as their marquee player are long gone. And yeah, Milford, keep Milford away from that team. He was so bad. He's always so bad when he plays for him. But
Samoa have a huge amount of great talent coming through, and not just around now, but even into the future. I want to see them actually having a genuinely good coach.
Yeah.
Moving them forward.
Yeah.
Especially one that's not actually linked with an NRL team at the moment. So someone who can actually divulge a bit of time and effort into not just the national team and their performances, but helping to grow the game in Samoa.
Yeah, the Johns brothers. That's who you're talking about, isn't it?
Well, it's either them or the Walker boys.
I'm so glad you said that. I was about to.
I'm not being inclined to go with the Walker brothers. It's Queensland closer to Samoa. I think something like that would be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, Samoa should be. They should be a dominant force.
Yeah.
And
look, I think the World Cup, I think New Zealand's going to be strong, obviously. Australia's obviously going to be strong. And Samoa and Tonga, they're the main four I think you can look at and be like, it's going to be between those four teams.
Absolutely. I've got no doubt about that at all. It's going to be hard to find out where exactly England starts fitting into this order because they're now barely ahead of PNG.
Yeah.
And PNG
look,
fast.
In this part of the world with normal refereeing standards applied, I would take PNG over England.
Yeah. That's kind of where they are though, and that's who they're competing with now.
Yeah, yeah.
Tonga, Samoa, New Zealand, Australia are all ahead of them.
Yeah. And I think Fiji gets everyone on the field. I think Fiji, they'd find it hard to beat Fiji.
But we just we need to get some of these Islander guys to start calling themselves Jacques Jerome, and get them in the French team.
Hey, French Polynesia.
That's what I'm saying.
They need to draw from French Polynesia.
Can we not make this happen?
I'm sure we can.
I'm sure we can. That needs to happen.
Should we talk a little bit of English rugby league stuff?
I think we should.
So Dom Young has been told by the Sydney Roosters that he can look elsewhere with 2.5 years left on his contract at the Roosters, because the Roosters always look after players until such point as they don't want them, and then they push them out the door as quickly as possible.
Can't believe they're letting a local junior go.
I know, right? I don't know where he would end up. I wouldn't be shocked if he went back home.
Why are they even letting him go?
Look,
they're not exactly. Look, regardless of his form, they're not exactly just overflowing with young talent at the moment, busting to get into the side.
Well, it's not like he is.
They had to get a winger from rugby union to fill in on one side.
Yeah, and it's not like he's a make or break player that's going to change their premiership chances. They're not going to win a premiership anytime in the next few years. So maybe they've got somebody that they can line up and they want to use his salary cap space. But I hope he just stays there. Just stay there. Earn the money.
Yeah.
Stuff it. Like they signed the contract too. So make him pay him. So, but anyway, that happened. And then the Salford Red Devils have had that they're like in such a terrible state right now. But there is talk that the Sydney Roosters might be looking to buy them out.
I have heard that.
And their current apparently, and look, it's all rumours and stuff, but the rumour is that the current owner wants to basically break even on the club at the very least, and it's not really a break-even prospect, and it's just a complete mess, and the Roosters want to call them Manchester Red Devils, and it's just a fucking mess, and I wouldn't want anything to do with any of it if I'd
probably call them the Manchester Roosters.
Yeah, that's it, Manchester Roosters, sorry.
And the car park, they might turn that into, say, I don't know, a Ford dealership.
Imagine that. Their stadium ends up being just a used car lot.
Used car lot.
Yeah.
And the people in Salford just be looking around and going, geez, a lot of people at the game today.
I'd probably get more people turn up on the weekend.
That'd be the way to do it. I have heard that. Also on English Rugby League, Coventry, I believe, have been shut down completely.
Yeah.
All their results have been expunged from the record.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, not Coventry, Cornwall.
Oh, Cornwall, yeah.
Yeah, they've been completely foiled due to overwhelming financial difficulties. So it's good to know for Salford that whatever they think their financial difficulties are, at least they're not overwhelming. Because if they get to the overwhelming state, then they'll have to fold. But at the moment, they can't be at overwhelming because obviously they're still there.
You know, a lot of Salford fans right now are pointing their finger at the person that currently owns the club. And I think that they should be pointing the finger at the people that approved the sale of the club. And I think that the people that approved the sale of the club are getting the exact situation they actually wanted out of this. And that's just my opinion, looking at it from the other side of the planet.
Yeah, it looks to me a bit like some blokes come along and just waved a checkbook at them and they've gone, yes, please, we'll take it. And they've jumped before they've actually asked any questions. Because it's just, it looked suspiciously weird from the get-go.
It just was a little strange. And the fact that he's willing to offload the club as quickly as he's apparently going to, I think that it probably says a lot about the whole situation. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, I'd like to know why it is that Salford have been allowed to rack up debt after debt after debt and keep carrying on as long as they have.
Well, but that's how they work over there.
I know, but I mean,
debt.
but Cornwall get axed, and they couldn't have had that much of a debt cod. Given they're in League One, they probably had a debt of about $35. That's it. You're gone because you're not in the North. You're gone, and Toronto, like that's not something worth trying to fix and look after. Nah,
Yeah.
get rid of it. And then they're going, oh, Catalans are strong. Yeah, well, let's fuck them as well, and they go as well. So how? Why? None of this makes sense. You fucking idiots.
Yeah, it's just a man. I just think, let them do. Let it be run by English people for English people.
We talked before
by English people, and they get what they want.
We've talked before at length about things the NRL could do.
Yeah.
To fix the Super League. And you know what? For a long time, I was optimistic about it. I was giving you suggestions. They should do this. They could do that, and this and that.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you fucking idiot. It's shit. Just stop. Stop.
You get to that point, don't you?
That's what you've been pushing me there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you going, why is he so down? Like, they can do it. The British spirit can get them there. And I was just like, right now I'm going, what the NRL should do right now, here's the new idea. You just go, let's build an NRL competition in France.
Yeah, or like my
and they could have teams in all over Europe coming into France to play games there. Germany, Netherlands, Spain, Ukraine, maybe not, Serbia.
Look, my thought is if the NRL wants to have a presence over there, you have an 8-team competition that you run in the winter. You call it the NRL Grand Prix, Rugby League Grand Prix. It's short, it's sharp, it goes for a couple of months. I think that you would get way more out of that than having to deal with all this other bullshit. You control everything. You can keep costs low. You can have juniors mixed in with maybe a couple of senior players, maybe a couple of English players that are off contract and want to have a bit of a, extra payday before they sign their next Super League season deal. I think that would work way better. You have Paris, London, Dublin, just pick the big markets.
No, mate, you've stumbled on something even better.
What's that?
They actually play these games on the same weekends as Formula One Grand Prix.
Yeah, why not?
And each Grand Prix has to have a home team that plays in every race as well. Right, so every city that's got a Formula One race also has a team competing in the competition.
But doesn't that sound like a better prospect?
I mean, I want it.
Yeah.
You can have Magic Weekend every time there's a Formula One race on. You can get Rugby League and Formula One for a whole week.
You are fucking with my idea.
Oh.
You are fucking with it.
Yeah.
Look, tell me that a 2-month-long 8-team competition that is NRL teams that are made like a big bash league out of nowhere. That's a way better idea than having to deal with a bunch of fucking balding old idiots that don't know how to run a business, that are running these teams into the ground and having to deal with their demands. Like, fuck you. All they really want's the money from out of the NRL with no oversight. They're just putting a hand out for our money. Fuck them all. Just take over the competition. Just start our own shit. It'll be better than what they've got anyway.
Yes. Start one, have no teams that represent any team that's ever been represented before.
Yep.
And just make them all so much better.
For all these fucking English fans that are like, no one will support that. No one will go, cool. Then you don't have to worry about it, do you?
Yeah.
It's not going to become the highest rated competition then. It's not going to take all of the TV money away from Super League, is it then? You don't have any fears about that. Don't worry. We'll just do our own thing. You do yours. Let's see how that works out.
I'm with you. Let's do it.
Fucking Dom Young, first signing. The London whatevers. The London, what would you call them? The London Monarchs. Fuck it.
I'm fine. I'm down with that. Let's do that.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it. Because then you're not having to deal with any of these fucking idiots that have ruined English rugby league over decades.
Should we not give them mascot names for animals that don't exist outside of zoos in the country?
Well, look, we all know that it will
Leopards?
end up being. We all know it'll end up being like NRL team mascot names because that's how the NRL likes stuff. They like to keep it all in,
That's fine.
in house. But I would go with different sorts of team names.
Yeah. How about the London Apteryx?
The what?
Yeah. Bring that on.
What was that?
It doesn't need to be anything. It's just a word.
Just a word. Just a word.
Apteryx. I think it's the unofficial name of the kiwi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The species name, whatever it is.
Look, the Poms take normal English words and they just turn them into a mess anyway.
I don't know if we as Australians can be too critical.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
We have some would say bastardized and some would say improved that language, but we've changed it.
I like to say improved.
Yeah. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Right, so that's the emails.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That
is good emails from our listeners.
That is phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
What else have we got going on? Any other news?
Jamal Fogarty took up he's going to go to Manly next year on a nice size deal, and for some reason there's this love fest that keeps on going on between him and Ricky Stewart. It's almost like they're trying too hard to say, oh yeah, there's no problems here. And so that's kind of weird, but the Canberra Raiders are weird. The Canberra Raiders aren't a football team. They're a cult.
They're a weird cult. Like really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Fogarty next to Luke Brooks. Yeah. I'm not seeing it.
No, neither am I. Like, I just don't think that that's an answer to a question that's anything to do with the premiership.
It doesn't feel good. I've got a feeling that they might eventually just switch the two positions, which is also not good. It just doesn't seem like a smart idea.
Look, this is the best season that Fogarty's had in terms of injury for a very long time. And we're only a third of the way through this season. So, hopefully he doesn't have any injury problems, but it's putting your eggs in one basket, isn't it?
It really is. Now, look, you're going to have all of DCE's money free. You can buy nearly any player you want. There's not going to be many you can't afford. And that's the one you go for.
Surely there was some West Tigers they could have bought.
Well, I mean, the one who's probably going to be replacing Lachlan Galvin came from Manly as a junior. That's the younger of the Whanau boys.
There you go.
And he's 19, turning 20, if he's not already 20. And he will just be a straight swap for Galvin. So, I don't know. I don't think Manly knows much about what they're doing at the moment.
No, I agree. I think that they're just a poorly run club.
Now, I have just seen Fox League have produced their report card.
Okay, for teams?
For teams after round 9.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is there any of them that stand out to you?
I'm just looking through them. I can read them out, and you can give me your idea on whether you think it's whether it should be higher or lower.
Keep in mind, this season has been amazing so far, super close, and that's a positive.
Well, I will say no one on here has an F.
Outside of the Titans, I think that's fair.
So Brisbane's got a C.
I think that's fair.
Bulldogs B minus.
Oh, I think that's a little bit low, but
that's a bit harsh. I'd have them as an A.
Yeah, so would I.
Cowboys with a C.
I would probably have them as a D.
Dolphins as a B.
I'd probably have them as a C.
I'd have them as a D.
Yeah.
Dragons with a B.
No, what the fuck?
I don't know what this is.
That doesn't make sense at all.
I don't know if this is like for the season or whether it's just round 9. I wonder if it's round 9 because I just had a look and it's got Parramatta with a B.
Okay, it's got to be round 9.
But then
it can't be.
Then again, it's Fox Sports, so you know.
Yeah. What did they have the Panthers at?
C+.
Well, then that's got to be the season because they trounced the Broncos.
The Titans are D-. They've got the lowest.
Well, they're just an F.
The Storm are C.
The Storm are not a C. The Storm are okay.
The highest 2 teams is the Tigers with A+, which
okay.
That's not right. No. I'll give them a B-.
A B- is good, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other one is the Raiders with an A-.
Hey, it's going to be funny when the Raiders bubble bursts. So.
Okay, I don't know what the hell that's on. I'm moving. I'm not going through it anymore. It's just stupid. There can't be anything about that that's logical.
Yeah.
Should
we do what we talked about doing before the podcast?
I think we should. We've got through everything else.
Yeah, I think so. There's nothing more important than that.
Okay.
So me and Andrew, last night I messaged Andrew and I said, our next podcast, let's just do like players. How would you describe them to your grandkids? And let's not have a player picked out. We'll just do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live.
So,
right?
These are players that we tell our grandkids about. Is that what it was?
No, more like I'll chuck a player at you and you tell me how you describe them to your grandkids. It can be a long talk. It can be really short and sweet, whatever you want. And then you just chuck a random player at me.
Right. And these are players from where? What are
that we've seen? That we've both seen.
That we've both seen?
That's it, yeah.
So we're basically talking from the late 80s onwards?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Not because we were alive then. We've just been watching the game on replays and videos since then. We're both sprightly 30-year-olds.
All right, you ready? I've got my first one. I thought of a bunch of players that I could talk about and that I could chuck at you, and I'm purposefully not picking those players.
I am far less prepared because I've not chosen any names.
I haven't chosen any names either. The player I'm going to chuck at you right now, I just thought of then.
Okay.
Mark McGaw.
He's kind of like the really placid version of Mark Geyer in the centres. Like build-wise, he had that rangy sort of bony, muscular type, but really strong upper body.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to tackle up high. You always had to go low on him.
Almost a prototype of what would become the modern rugby league player, and with his build.
Yeah. Yeah, very, I don't know. He's one of those guys who actually played like Origin and played tests and stuff like that, but just one of those guys who was, in the elite level for several years. But history just forgets after a while to some extent.
Yeah. I think he would be even better in this era than he was in his era, just because I think that modern day coaches would know how to use him a little bit better than what they did back then, because the game was still changing a little bit when he sort of come into being a really good first grade player.
Yeah.
And so I think he would have been even better now.
All right, you've got me. You've spurred on one for me to send you.
Okay.
Michael O'Connor.
I don't like him. Hey.
I don't think many people do.
Yeah. He was a skillful player. Very good goal kicker. My just overwhelming thought is I don't like him, and that's not good. He was a quality player though, a quality centre, and
there was a few centres around similar to him at the time. So you had people like let's see, Mark Coyne. Yeah, similar sort of style, because they were able to get outside their man pretty easily. And a lot of what they did was not so much about scoring a ton of points, but it was all about getting the opportunity and credit for the winger outside him.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, I mean, he was playing in an era where we maybe had more quality centres than any time in the game's entire history.
Yeah.
Like, this is the Renouf Meninga era where it's just like they're your test centres, and from there they were all amazing players. Like, as you say, like Coyne, and that's not even taking into account that you could have had players like Fittler and Daly in the centres as well.
Eddinghausen.
Like E.T., yeah.
Like,
and the fact that he played rep football shows the quality of player he was. But yeah, he's not one of those players that I think you would normally talk to your grandkids about unless they asked about him. But he was a quality player. I think if he played these days, he would be one of the top centres. But he'd probably be a little bit undersized in the modern game. But yeah, he was a handy player.
Absolutely. I was just thinking he might be similar to maybe a less skillful ball player version of Jamie Lyon.
Yeah, look, I would agree with that. Better athlete than Jamie Lyon, I would suggest.
Yeah, I think Lyon had better ball skills, but O'Connor was faster, more agile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say O'Connor was more dedicated to the game, which is kind of ironic because I think deep down he probably fucking hates rugby league. So yeah, that was a good one, Andrew. I like that one. Okay, I just my next one I just thought of just this second. It just popped into my head, and you'll know the connection. It's a club connection. Wayne Bartram.
Wayne Bartram. I thought he was overrated.
I think he was a little bit as well.
I don't think he deserved to play rep footy.
He probably didn't, but I think the fact that he did said a lot about him as a player.
Or selectors.
He got it possibly, but he squeezed every ounce of talent out of his career without question.
Oh, not denying that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I didn't see what the extra special thing was about him that saw him get rep honours above anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never saw it. Sometimes you get players that like that. But yeah, I never knew what it was that. I'm not saying he was shit, but I just didn't think he was at that next top elite level.
Yeah. I think in the modern game he'd be a 5'8",
Oh, maybe. I mean, he'd be more like a less aggressive Victor Radley, wouldn't he?
You reckon?
An undersized lock?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, because he was an undersized, especially in the modern game, he'd be super undersized at lock. I thought his ball handling was okay. Like, it was good for a lock, but just good for a lock. He was an all right player, though.
All right. Well, I'm going to now. I have to do this, okay?
Okay.
Because this guy doesn't get enough love. Dale Shearer.
Oh, the greatest player ever. Is ready to play for Queensland right now.
He would probably get man of the match.
He would, yeah. Super versatile. I would, the player I would compare him to a little bit, but like a better version of Gagai. In that you could, when he was at his best, you could pick him at fullback, you could pick him on the wing, you could pick him on the centre, and he'd do the job for you. And he would play wholeheartedly, and he was always ready to go. Like Gagai, if you picked him for Queensland this year, he would get the job done. He would give you everything he's got. And so he reminds me a little bit of him. I think he is a little bit more of he was a leaner athlete, and that was the times, of course, as well. He wasn't as powerful as Gagai, but I think he was a better, general athlete than Gagai, and would have more endurance than Gagai as well. So, I think
he would have been faster too. He had a very surprising turn of pace. I think a lot of people looked at him and thought, "Oh yeah, I've got this guy. Don't worry about it." And then you go, "Fuck, where'd he go?"
And he's gone. Yeah. And because of that, he was one of those guys that is New South Welshman, which both you and I are. You hated him.
Yes.
Because it would be like fuck, how did he score? You know? And
every time you watch him play, God, he looks 90.
Yes.
He's schooling us every fucking game.
For us, he was always an old guy, right? And he was always an old guy that was somehow beating us. And it has only taken 30 years of distance between his career to be able to finally look back and say, God damn it, I love that bastard.
Yeah. I thought he was an absolute freak.
Mm.
The fact that he got to play quite a number of test matches as well.
Yeah.
At a time when all the positions he played, which was basically back five, especially on wing and fullback, he was competing with, let's see, fullback would have been Gary Jack, Gary Belcher, Paul Hoff for a while, Greg Alexander. On the wings, god damn, who wasn't there? Michael Hancock, Willie Kahn for a little bit, I guess.
Yep.
Who else would there have been? Andrew Eddinghausen, Michael O'Connor. Jesus Christ, it just goes on.
All of those, the outside backs in that era were just ridiculous.
Yeah. And he played so goddamn well the whole time.
Yeah. And that's why he would get selected. And because he was super reliable. Like if Queensland picked him out of nowhere because they had an injury or something that he had to cover, he would go and he would put an A grade game every single time.
Yeah. There's absolutely no doubt about it, man.
It was so infuriating.
Absolutely phenomenal player.
Mm.
He played 21 tests.
That says it all, huh?
And he played one for the rest of the world, but as we know,
that doesn't count.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry about that. But he played mostly at wing from 86 until 1991, and then his last three tests against New Zealand in 1993 were at fullback.
Oh, there you
go. But yeah, absolutely phenomenal player.
Okay, I've got one for you, and I actually thought about him the last couple of days when I've been thinking about players, because I actually liked him as a player. Harvey Howard, the Pom.
He started at Illawarra, didn't he? And then went to Brisbane?
Was it Illawarra?
I could be wrong. Oh, no, was it West?
Yeah, it was West. Yeah, it was West.
Yeah. Actually, he started it. He had one season at East. I'm looking up now, and then
I don't remember that.
1993, 4 games at East, and then he had 4 games for the 4 years with the Magpies, and then 1 season at the Broncos. But over in England, played for Widnes, Leeds, Bradford, Wigan, and Hull KR. I mean, he retired in 2003.
Yeah, and it's weird because you kind of feel like he was a bit of a further back play, but he wasn't. I liked him. I thought he was a good, honest forward. For a very long time, he was the only English forward that had been any good in the competition for a very long time.
Since maybe the 70s.
Yeah, I was going to say the 70s. And I liked him. He was a good, honest player.
Yeah, mate, he had a really high work rate. And was always popping up good offloads. One of the few props at the time, he was able to get, you see players getting the tackle and they're sort of gang tackled from the front, and you'd be able to get his arm underneath and offload out the back underneath his other arm.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing that before it became a very common practice for a lot of players.
And I always thought he had good mobility too for a dude his size.
Yeah. That was a good one. I was not expecting that one. Let's see. Racking my brain here. Try and find a good name.
Just a random player.
A random one. Daniel Fitzhenry.
Man, how would I describe him? He's an undersized slightly underskilled.
You're trying really hard.
Yeah, he's a utility player
That's a stretch.
who was asked to do things by his coach that were probably unfair, but he went out and he did his best.
He was very committed to his role.
Yes. Got played probably every position on the team.
I'll just have a look now. So he played 20 games at fullback, 74 on the wing, 26 at centre, 29 at 5'8", 15 at hooker, and 27 off the bench.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if those 27 games on the bench included games at halfback, prop, second row, and lock.
Yeah, well, he did play in the forwards. Like, he just did. So, yeah, that would have been the bench role. But, yeah, considering his ability level, he did pretty damn well. Played a lot of first-grade footy, as you just pointed out then. And, he was a staple of that West Tigers team for a very long time. And, good luck to him.
Absolutely.
That's always what you want to hear. Good luck to him.
Well, to be honest, he was horribly used for the majority of his career.
Yeah, definitely.
Often put in places where he was underweight. And he never shied away from the work.
Yeah.
Honest toiler. Another thing that used to annoy me is that when he got put on the wing, he would often get like shit ball. Mm-hmm. And instead of just running it forward and taking the tackle and trying to get a quick play so he can get the defense off, still on the back foot and make something of it, he would run infield or he'd run in a circle, he'd run around and he'd lose ground. And you're like, stop putting him on the wing. Fuck.
Yeah.
He was pretty handy at fullback in his time there. And he was serviceable at 5'8" next to Benji because, he didn't have to do much there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was just horribly used for a lot of his career, which is disappointing, but he was definitely wholehearted and committed. I won't deny the man that much.
Probably if you had a chance to do his career over again, you probably would have aimed for him to be a replacement hooker off the bench. If you'd let him develop into that role, he probably would have been really good at it. But like you can just see he was used literally everywhere in the West Tigers team.
Yeah.
And, how many players in the whole history of the game have been asked to play everywhere on the field? Like, it's not many. So he did his best.
That's absolutely fair.
Okay, my turn. Okay. I wish you'd asked me this one. Matt Adamson.
All I can think of, I've only got one word in my head, and that is rangy.
That's funny.
I actually don't remember seeing much of Matt Adamson play.
Okay.
But by all means, Matt Adamson.
Okay. Well, funnily enough, pretty sure he started as a fullback.
Yes.
Pretty big dude. A big frame on him. Ended up becoming a second rower. Very good, just asking. At one point at Penrith, become really too big for his own boots. Fucking giantly too big for his own boots. Thought he was something he fucking never was. Was a very big Matthew Elliott guy. Matthew Elliott had ended up with him at the Canberra Raiders, where he became very strangely much bigger than he had been previously. You know what I'm saying, Andrew.
I'm just looking at his stats here. I like the fact that at the end of 1995, he was a fullback.
Mm-hmm.
And then for round 1, 1996, he's a second rower.
Yeah. Well, look, he had a big frame on him. And for a big frame dude, he was pretty athletic,
Mm.
And yeah, he was a big Matthew Elliott dude. Matthew Elliott obviously got him back to Penrith. And then for some reason he carried on like he was fucking Mal Meninga, like everyone should have listened to him. And I'm pretty sure he started shit canning a lot of the young Panthers dudes that ended up becoming premiers, which Matt Adamson wasn't a part of any of that. But yeah, that's what I would say about Matt Adamson.
You're not going to mention his career at Leeds?
No.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, I know that he played for New South Wales, and did he play for?
He played for Super League New South Wales,
And did he play
definitely.
for Super League Australia as well?
Oh, he might have, yeah.
I looked.
Did he play for the normal New South Wales team?
Yes, 2001 he played 2 games, and he played one
Okay.
game in '97 for Super League.
Okay,
And he
there
played
you go.
5 times for the Australian Super League team.
There you go.
Oh my god! How?
What a trash fucking outfit that was. That's not a real Australian team. Let's not pretend.
It deserved to fail.
Yeah, fuck them. All right, your turn, Andrew.
My turn. I'm gonna do a good one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
John Cartwright.
John Cartwright, ahead of his time, way ahead of his time. Very, very big dude. Very mobile for his size. Would be a big forward in today's game, which says a lot.
Yep.
You know, had a bit of an offload in him, which was...
Mate, his offloads were great.
Yeah, and like you think of him along with like Mark Geyer, it's no surprise Penrith won a premiership. Like when you start having forwards like that in the same team.
Yeah, I mean, they came along at the same time that the 10-metre rule came in, and so the second phase play that they were creating at the time on each side of the ruck was just fucking devastating.
Yeah, he would have, if in the under the 5-metre rule, just would not have been. It would have been underutilized for what he had. Like all of just was perfect 10-metre rule player, and would step into today's game and just not miss a beat. And yeah, like obviously his father and everything ingrained in the entire, you know, making the Penrith football team a thing, which is awesome. So it's cool to see that his son was such a big part of their first premiership winning team.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a very, very good player for the Penrith club through his entire career, and we were lucky to have him. He's one of those real foundation players that, you know, like almost Penrith's version of Mark Sargent, where you're just so happy to have a player like that and a leader like that, and, you know, just real heart and soul of the club sort of player. And yeah, very good forward. Very, very good forward. I would love to have seen him in the current era. I think in the current era, he would walk into the Australian team. Just exactly what the current game is all about.
Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to think who he would be most like in the modern game, and I'm thinking maybe Tino.
Yeah, he's like in that sort of category. Probably doesn't have the same power game as Tino does have, but he's that sort of size and athleticism range, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And skill set wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. God, he's a good player. He was phenomenal. And his peak lasted several years.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like we were very lucky to have him at the club. And it's a shame that he didn't get to play in more really good teams because he deserved to.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think had he been in more good sides at Penrith, he would have played a lot more rep footy. But at the same time, he played in once again, you talk about the sort of forwards or big second rowers of that era, and you're talking about some of the greatest players that have ever played the game.
Yeah. He was amazing. I love watching him play.
Yeah. Is it my go?
Your go, yeah, that's right. I did Cartwright.
Okay, let me think. Okay, let's go for okay, let's go for a fun one. Andrew Eddinghausen.
I credit this guy from day one for getting me into rugby league to start with.
My first favourite player.
Yep. You know, when he first started, it was the blistering pace that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he got older and a little bit slower, not much, he developed a absolutely beautiful swerve where he would just use the pace to just run round people.
Mm.
And as soon as he started to lose pace, it didn't matter anymore because he's already far enough ahead. He didn't need to go any faster anymore. And that swerve was a thing of beauty. You see him just sort of going around players and finding spaces. And then when he got to the end of his career, he learned how to be an absolutely devastating defender and brilliant hole runner. And his game just kept evolving as the game itself required him to evolve in the way it needed him to evolve. And he stayed relevant and elite for the damn near entirety of his career.
Yeah.
Very few players do that. He was just, for a back, the only other player I could think of that managed to evolve with the game as the game demanded was someone like Darren Lockyer and Brad Fittler. Like, just they stayed relevant and purposeful and elite from the time they made it to the top grade until the time they retired. They never stopped. They never went to that phase where they would, they're subpar now, or they're not one of the top 3 players in the club. They're always just there. He was just a phenomenal player.
And super reliable. It's weird to think of like when he started it, because his pace was so good when he first hit the scene. Like if you had said at the time, this guy is going to become one of the best defensive centers of all time, and you would never have thought it. And just such a he didn't have a bad game. He just never had a bad game.
No.
And that he played so much rep footy once again in that era, and was one of the first picked as well. Like, wasn't like on the edge of being picked. It was like, oh yeah, you've got to have ET in there.
Yeah.
Like, says a lot. Just such a good player. Amazing player.
Absolutely phenomenal. And look, spent two half seasons basically at Leeds in 86 and 88.
Mm.
He scored 30 tries in 40 games.
Yeah.
Man, he was just phenomenal. Has the unique record, I think, of being the only player in the NRL New South Wales Rugby League first grade history to have scored 666 points.
Oh, really?
Yes. He had 166 tries and 1 goal.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Loved him as a player.
If he played today, would be the best centre in the world, and we wouldn't even be talking about it. It's like, oh yeah, ET's the best centre, and then we just move on. Like, just that's how good he was.
There's no doubt about that at all. I'm going to try and think of one from a bit further. I know. Martin Bella. Okay. So, a forward that was probably better suited to the 5 metre era. Yes.
Right? Big barrel chested dude, but whose ability allowed him to move into the 10 metre era and do it very well. Obviously a little bit like he was a good go forward dude. His mobility wasn't amazing, but it was pretty damn good for his build. Super reliable for Queensland.
He was what they would say, probably one of the first of the post-contact meter guys.
Yeah.
So he wasn't about being fast at the line. What he was just fucking hard to stop. And so because of that, he kept going forward the whole time. And when he actually hit the ground, no one turned him around to put him on his back. He fell forward, so he got to fast play the ball away as well. And which was a common thing for the elite props at the time. You think Glenn Lazarus, Steve Roach, Sam Bacco, all did the same thing. They all fell forward, got a quick play the ball, and that's the thing that separated from all the other props in the game. And Bella was one of the best at that as well.
The only time he was ever turned around was in the 94 grand final.
And yeah, he'd been around a bit by then.
Yeah, that was the very end of his career. But very, very reliable player. Another dude that got the absolute maximum out of his career. And yeah, the way you describe, I would describe him as having a diesel engine a lot of talk,
That's fair.
Wasn't the fastest player, but yeah, hard to bring down. And really good prop. And another one of those players that played in an era where there were so many great players around, and yet he still played so much rep footy. And I think that always says a lot.
Definitely.
Okay. How about I'm going to chuck a rotten one at you.
Okay.
Phil Bailey. Good luck.
He was Greg Bird before Greg Bird was Greg Bird.
You know when we say, man, he played in a really stacked era and that's why he played a lot of rep football. Imagine the opposite of that.
Yeah. He was he wasn't garbage, but he managed to achieve a lot more than I think a lot of pundits would have thought he would out of his career.
Yeah, he was all right.
To quote a line from another great sports commentator on this podcast, he did all right. Well done to him.
You pretty well.
He was basically a centre who was moved to the lock position because there was just better centres available. Not that those centres were elite. They were just better centres. And you got to think of this too. I think he was moved to the lock when Paul Gallen started his career, and Paul Gallen was coming off the bench and sometimes playing at lock and sometimes at 5/8 before he moved permanently into the forwards. Yeah,
that was when Paul Gallen was just pretty much a middle of the road. No one really thought of him as going anywhere. Just all right player.
When you started with the letter M there, I thought you were going to say mere mortal.
Well, I'm just saying how Paul Gallen was just Paul Gallen, and then something happened in his career. I don't know what it was.
Before he became elite.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happened really quickly and overnight too. It was kind of strange. But anyway.
I've had an idea for some place to look up.
Okay.
I've gone, let's have a look at some of the Parramatta halfbacks that weren't Peter Sterling.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So here's one. Chris Sandow.
I remember when he signed that big contract, and I actually thought it was a pretty good contract. I thought that with the salary cap going up and stuff, that would become a good contract. And look, it would have if he had kept developing as a player, and he just didn't. He was a bit of a will-o'-the-wisp sort of halfback that would try different things, maybe at unorthodox times, and when they worked, he looked like a genius, but when they didn't, it was like, oh man, that's a bad turnover. Well, that's a bad short kick in his side of the field, stuff like that. Didn't have as long of a career as he should have, but he was a pretty handy player. It just didn't play out for him the way it really should over his career. His short kicking game was great.
Oh, phenomenal, mate. He was one of those players who the off the cuff stuff would have made him a pretty handy player in the very early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And he appeared on the scene at the tail end of that when the wrestle started coming into the game. The defense started to become more pronounced, and
you got to play the percentages.
Yeah, and overly structured football was the key to success, and he did not fit in with that. He missed the window he should have been in by about 5 years.
Yeah.
Put it like this: he was, as far as off the cuff goes, he was not too dissimilar with the way he approached the game to the way Benji Marshall did. Benji Marshall just got in 4 years earlier, and so he got to have a few years of recognizing where he needed to get his game to and adjust his style to suit the way the game changed. Whereas Sandow turned up at the end of all of that and didn't have that luxury.
If I feel as though if he had have played in the 70s, he would have been perfect for that era. Just breaking that defensive tension. I think he would have been better under the 5 meter rule because, that short kicking game would have been just lethal in that era. But yeah, it just, as you say, he played into the era of playing the percentages. His long kicking game was nowhere near as good as his short kicking game.
No, I think it would have been best if he had been a 5'8" with a controlling halfback next to him. That would have suited his style perfectly.
I think the only reason he was never looked at as that because he was a smaller dude as well.
Yeah.
I think that especially at that point in the game's like, you know, evolving, changing how the game was played. Like coaches do. If you're a 5'8" in that era, you were a big dude. Like you were almost second row / center.
Yes.
Size, you know, rather than being a smaller dude.
All right, should I do another halfback, or do you want to keep?
Yeah, do another para halfback.
All right, Jeff Robson.
Jeff Robson, more of the guy that you would want there for his defence.
Yeah, he was. I would say, in all honesty, he was probably a better hooker than he was ever going to be a half.
Yeah.
He was built for that defensive game.
Yeah.
But yeah, a less error-prone version of Chad Townsend who could defend better than Chad Townsend.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It kind of makes him that makes him an upgrade on Townsend, really. That's fair.
I would take him over Townsend, definitely. Yeah. And we've had players like that. Like he sort of, if you think there's been players like that, like you know, Sean Rudder, sort of. You have your dominant half, and then you've got this other guy who's just a solid defender. He won't mess plays up and stuff like that. And that was the sort of player he was.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
That's a good one. Okay, next one. Tim Smith.
This is just one of the prototypical, like, next big thing players. Had some good games when he first entered first grade. A little undersized, but really didn't get a chance to fill in as a player because his career wasn't as long as it should have been. Probably didn't get given the length of time he should have been given because Parramatta don't know how to develop halfbacks.
No, and then he went to... Did he go to the Sharks when they had Ricky Stewart there? Or was that after Ricky Stewart?
Man!
No, it was. He was a Ricky Stewart signing.
And you can say, I mean, Ricky Stewart has ruined halfbacks for forever. So,
yeah. Just unfortunately, he definitely had. I'd say a Luke Brooks style player has all the skills, but didn't have the gameplay management control part of the game, which is actually the most important part of being a halfback.
Yeah, and look, with Tim Smith, I can forgive him for that because he was never really given the chance to develop that, whereas like Brooks had fucking every chance to, and it just didn't happen.
Well, I think a lot of it though for Brooks is because he was always a 5'8" in everything he ever did from the day he turned up. And the club was just insistent that, no, he's the halfback, Moses is the 5'8". And history has gone on to show that probably the best seasons that both of those players have had is when Moses has been his halfback and Brooks has been a 5'8".
Yeah.
And,
I think in a different timeline, if Tim Smith come into the league right now under a decent coach, he could have a pretty bloody solid career. I don't think he was ever going to be a superstar, but he would be a good long-term halfback for a club.
Absolutely. All right, here's another one. John Simon.
I love John Simon. I fucking love John Simon. Former Illawarra stalwart. Was brought into the Eels to try and fix the problem. And the problem is that the Eels just could never find a halfback, and so they brought in this veteran halfback, good all-round, like just a real good, solid all-round halfback, good kicking game, very good long kicking game. And it just still didn't quite work, and I don't blame him though. I think he did exactly the job they brought him in to do. Unfortunately, he's coming into a club that was good at choking when it mattered.
Yeah. Oh man, he had when he first started with the Steelers, he was very fast off the start and strong upper body on him.
Yeah, just a real solid dude.
Yeah,
Hey,
and a huge kicking game.
He's probably the only dude like that's a solid that you could say was like a Andrew Johns type solid halfback.
Yeah, and what I remember is I think it was it 91 or 92. Richie Stewart was out with a leg injury or a knee injury, something like that, and so
For Origin.
Yeah.
So
John Simon came in for a game there, and they brought him in specifically because his kicking game was the only kicking game that New South Wales could find in a halfback that was as close to Ricky Stewart's.
I would say since Peter Sterling, it's John Simon and Moses are the two best halfbacks that they've had by quite some way.
Well, let's try the next one, shall we?
You're not gonna do this to the poor guy.
Stu Galbraith.
Oh, geez. I've got nothing. I've got absolutely nothing. That guy, I don't know he exists until you just said his name.
I think he was he Kiwi? I think he might have been a Kiwi.
Yeah. When did he play?
In the 90s.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find any more about him.
How many games did you play? Did you play like 3 games or something?
No, 40-odd games for the Eels.
Wow. I don't have any. I've got nothing.
There you go. He was born in Auckland. He played for Chorley in 89-90 for one game. Cool. He played for Rochdale in 1991.
Oh,
and then he came over to Australia and played with Parramatta.
Yeah, I don't remember him at all.
He was at Parramatta from 92 to 94.
Man, oh yeah, I've got nothing for him.
There's a few others here. Let's see. We're getting to players now who played less than 40 games as a halfback for Parramatta.
Well, can we do one that I want to talk about?
Sure, go for it.
We could probably do a whole podcast. Jason Taylor.
Probably not a whole podcast.
I could do a whole podcast on Jason Taylor. First of all, if Jason Taylor's your halfback going into a season, you're probably making the finals pretty easily.
You will.
Great goal kicker, one of the greatest goal kickers we've ever had.
Yep.
Very good kicking game. Very, very good kicking game. Very good passing game.
Yes, very good.
Especially short passing game too.
Yes, and his game management was pretty good too. He wasn't. Let's be honest. In the 90s, he was probably the Cooper Cronk of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Just without the rep on us.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison. Iron Man, he didn't miss games. He maybe still holds the record for the most consecutive games. I don't know if that's been broken.
No, it got broken by Luke Douglas.
Oh, that's right.
And Luke Douglas was actually... Luke Douglas played a ton of games in a row, and the streak got broken when there was a bit of a scandal at the Sharks.
Oh, okay.
And so he'd already signed a contract to go to the Titans when that happened. And he had to miss the last game or something of the year. And he played another like 20 or 30 odd straight games after that for the Titans. So he could have actually extended it even further. But yeah, he holds a record by a massive amount.
But think about this, a halfback that held the record for consecutive games played. And just like that is phenomenal.
It was tough.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, you can't question his toughness.
There was a game, I think it was a finals match. It was played between North and Brisbane. I don't know. I can't remember what year. I'm guessing it might be 94 or 95, something like that. I'm pretty sure the Bears won by 1 point. And Jason Taylor had as many flying forearms into his nose as a human could possibly face in a single game. And his nose was bloodied and broken and shattered, and he played the whole game. And I'll have to check. I'm going off memory here. I think he kicked the match-winning field goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mum's a Broncos fan and was a massive fan for theirs through the 90s. And she remembers that game vividly because she thought, yeah, we've got this game, and she just went, how the hell did that little bastard? Yeah, that's just what he was. He was just tough.
Now, with all of that said, when it comes to the finals, just didn't get the job done.
Well,
he was a very good regular season player, but in the finals, when you need especially in that area, you need your halfback to really stand up and get it done. He just didn't get it done.
He had 5 wins and 11 losses in finals footy.
Yeah. And the one that we probably remember the most because it's the last big one he had, and it was kind of the end of his career, was the 2001 grand final when he'd moved to Parramatta, and once again Parramatta looked to fix their problem at halfback by getting a veteran halfback who ticked so many boxes, and they had one of the greatest seasons of all time, regular seasons of all time. They stormed into the grand final, and in the grand final they lose to a very, very flawed Newcastle Knights team led by Andrew Johns, and it was this stark contrast between this great halfback that got it done when it mattered and this great halfback that just didn't get it done when it mattered, man.
And oddly enough, that game was largely over at halftime. From memory, the Knights were up like 22-0 or 24-0 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And the Eels fought back well in the second half. But, just has been a case an awful lot for Jason Taylor. It just fell a little bit short.
Yeah.
So the second half, Parramatta outscored Newcastle 24-6. But yeah, it
was a wet sail comeback though, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, in Jason Taylor's defence, it's probably Bill Harrigan's fault because Bill Harrigan often made mistakes as a referee. Let's be honest.
Oh, jeez, getting some name flashbacks. All right, give us another one, mate.
Another one. All right. Let's see. Who can we get here?
Are you going through a list?
No.
I'm literally pulling these out of my head.
No. I've been thinking off the top of my head. The only ones I went through the list for was the Parramatta players.
Parramatta. Okay.
I'm trying to think because I tried to think of a few Penrith ones so I could get something for you to talk about. But now I'm going to go and get a West Tigers player.
Okay.
Darren Centre.
I love Darren Centre. First of all, the greatest smile in the history of smiles.
100%. Still unbeaten on that front, I must say.
Easy. Just immortal. The immortal smile. There's no one else even in it.
Yeah. On the Mount Rushmore of smiles, it's just him in 4 different poses.
Pretty much, yeah. And it's all the exact same pose, exactly. But it's still that's all you need.
Just a different camera angle.
Really good defender. Really not super skillful, but and still a crafty hooker. Pretty good running game. Like he really knew when to pick, when to run. And he did it in a side that was normally not very good at all. And the fact that he would stand out doing that said a lot because he was in teams that were beaten most times, but he was still like a standout player in those games. Tireless worker, a really good leader. Wish he'd played in a much better team because I think in a much better team we would be talking about him a lot more and he probably would have played a lot more rep footy and, maybe even played for Australia. And he was just one of those guys that in some really bad Tigers teams, you always knew he was going to put in a really good effort and be one of the better players on the field every single time.
Yeah. The biggest shame and the thing that hurts me the most about him is that after all he did for both Balmain leading up to when they got the merge and for the West Tigers in their early years is that he retired the year before they won the premiership.
Yeah.
And if anyone deserved a title for the work they did, it was him.
Yep, 100%.
He was the heart and soul of the West Tigers when they first started.
He really was. He really was.
And they had some rocky years, those early years. The Terry Lamb years are very, very rocky. They were basically just a road full of rocky marbles, to be honest. That was just a horrible time.
That's a really good way to describe them. And he was like, in all of that, he was like just this rock solid dude.
Kept them together, kept the vibe good, kept them still putting in, kept them from getting wooden spoons when, my God, they deserved them. Yeah, he was amazing. Very undervalued and underrated player.
Yeah.
Even nowadays, like even the West Tigers do not talk about him anywhere publicly, which I just think is just a shame because, man,
I don't get it. Yeah,
he was amazing.
Yeah, they really should try and bring him into the fold. He might. Some dudes when they're finished playing, they're like, "Man, I did that. I just want to do something else." And he might be one of those guys. I don't know, but
man, I'd get him in just to model the fucking clothes on the West Tigers shop.
Yeah, just do something.
You can't tell me having that bloke smiling on there wearing their gear is not going to improve sales. I'll have 50 of everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good player.
Yeah.
Man, I wish he'd been in some good teams. That would have been interesting to see.
Well, he started at the Bulldogs, but he missed out on their successful runs. Always just kept missing out by a little bit. It was just a bit of a shame, that.
Yeah. Okay, let me think of one now for you. Okay. Okay. It's weird. It's weird the names that pop up in my head sometimes. Dane Carlaw.
Oh.
Do you remember the famous line?
Which one was this one?
About Dane Carlaw.
What was that?
He was built like Tarzan and played like Jane.
Oh, that's right. Who said that?
Was it Gordon Tallis? It wasn't Gordon Tallis, was it?
Did he? If it was, he pinched it from somebody else because he's not smart enough to think of that on his own.
Yeah, 100%.
Wasn't that was that a Jack Gibson line?
Was it?
It might have been about someone else. I can't remember. But yeah, he was, man, is it fair to say he was Dave Taylor before Dave Taylor?
Really good comparison. Like, obviously different body shape to Dave Taylor, but like this dude that had about 18 months where you were like, oh my God, how good's he going to be? And then it was like, oh man, what a fucking plotter.
What happened to that guy?
Yeah. You know who he's a good comparison to is the dude at North Queensland, Payne Haas. Not Payne Haas,
no.
Cohen Hess.
Yeah.
Just like he just bursts onto the scene. You're like, he has everything to be an amazing player. And then like a couple of years later, you're like, what the fuck happened, man?
Yeah, he got all of the like rep honors and stuff so early on.
And deserved them.
Yeah. And then just disappeared.
Yeah.
It was quite literally because he went over to France and played for Catalans over there.
Yeah.
And wasn't really doing much over there either. We ended up playing nearly 200 games in the NRL, 188 games.
I would say 100 of those were just average as fuck. But the first 100, my God, he was good.
Oh yeah. Oh, man, I've now thought of a really good one.
Okay, go on.
Paul Hoff.
Paul Hoff is, I don't remember a great deal about him. Very tall dude, though. One of the tall, he might be the tallest fullback in the history of the game.
Maybe second only to Matt Adamson.
Maybe.
Man, his legs were so ridiculously long.
Yeah, weird. Like, I feel as though he was one of those in-between rep players where you have legends, and then there's that guy. Like, and it doesn't mean that he's a bad player, but he wasn't quite as good as the players around that sort of era, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he just turned up. He was just under 6'6". But yeah, 1991, he had an amazing season. And it was only, his second season, I think, in the game. Yeah. And he played for Queensland, played his one test for Australia. And he was, I don't know what happened, but after 1991, his form just fell away for some reason after the rep season. And he barely played football ever again. And the crazy thing is, in his entire career, like 3 games for Queensland in 91, 1 test for Australia in 91. By the end of his career, he'd played 51 games.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy, hey? I'm guessing that he probably, at Clubland, he probably found it hard to keep his place in the team because that would have been coming into the era of like Julian O'Neill and like they had a bunch of guys that could play halfback at like this ridiculous elite level that were also really versatile and could play anywhere in rep teams, let alone for the Broncos. And that probably had an effect on his career.
Oh, absolutely would have.
Just lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, look, Julian O'Neill did come along in that 1992 season. So that probably pushed him out a little bit. But you would have thought that the incumbent test fullback would have been able to hold down his place. But O'Neill pushed him out of the fullback role after 5 weeks.
And when you think about how good Julian O'Neill was as a player at that time, it's not like a shock. It's like, oh yeah, well, it's Julian O'Neill. Like I think Julian O'Neill is like a better version of Cameron Munster.
That's not far off, to be honest.
Yeah, like I think I would say he's like Munster's got a better
aim.
What's that? What's just that?
Aim.
Yeah, that's a good point. Jeez, man. Let's not get into all of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just
Julian O'Neill is the only person that you can say, do you want to hear something horrific about a dude that was in a foam Dolphins outfit? But like Munster obviously has a better power running game than O'Neill had, but O'Neill was, I think, a faster player off the mark. And I think O'Neill was a more skillful player, to be honest.
He might. I think I'll say Munster's got much more. He's got better ball skills and better organising skills.
Yeah, he'd be better. O'Neill was more of a off the cuff sort of player.
Yeah, and he was frighteningly good.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, he was amazing.
It's crazy how quickly it kind of. He's another one where it's like. You were watching him and you were like, man, this guy's going to be the Australian fullback or 5'8", depending on where he wants to go for a long time. And, you know, his off-field issues were obviously a massive, massive problem. And that's why his career didn't go where it should have. But at his best, he was elite.
Oh, yeah. Whose turn is it?
Was that mine or your one?
I said Paul Hoff.
Okay, and then I said Julian, and then I think we just talked into. Okay, let me do one then.
Okay.
Oh man, I just the first player that popped into my head, Carl Webb.
Carl Webb.
Yeah, the late great.
Man, you want to talk about powerful running games? My God, that guy looked like he was the sort of fella from birth that he grew up just believing in the fact that he could run through a wall if he ran hard enough.
Mm.
And he served his life purpose of trying to achieve it. Because, my God, I've never seen a guy run with so much conviction straight at another human. That's got to be intimidating. I don't care who you are. God damn, he was a powerful runner. And, as he got older, he developed really good offloads and passing game. And then I think someone told him, you don't always have to smash into a wall. You can step a little bit as you get to the line, and they added another little bit to his game here and there. And he was a fast learner.
Yeah, he evolved his game, which a lot of forwards can't do.
Yeah. But yeah, powerful ball runner. God damn.
Scored one of the greatest Origin tries ever.
Yes.
Annoyingly.
Frustratingly. Yeah. He was always entertaining to watch.
Mm.
He's not always, because you didn't always want to watch him because you knew that he wasn't on your team. You knew he was going to cause some dramas. He was either going to injure somebody on your side or he was just going to lead some sort of massive annihilation of your team. And given I'm a Tiger supporter, it was always usually both.
He was built as wide as he was tall as well.
Yes.
He's one of those dudes.
He built like a 1980s, 1990s English prop forward.
Yeah.
Some of those guys had massively square shoulders on them.
You know who he reminds, like as a younger dude, he reminds me a little bit of Reuben Cotter, but he was bigger, like he's much bigger frame.
Yeah. And much stronger ball runner.
Yeah, like that, like just being so much more of a bigger frame on him, like that, just horrible to bring down.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when he's young, because he had that, like he had really good foot speed for someone that big.
Yep. I'm going to throw a 1 year wonder at you.
Okay.
The greatest 1 year wonder probably ever.
Okay.
Ewan McGrady.
Well, I mean, there are players, and then there's Ewan McGrady. Wasn't he the big signing for the South Queensland Crushers?
Magpies.
Oh, was it Magpies?
Yeah, so he played 4 seasons with the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Basically 3 full seasons. He only played 1 game in 1993. And then the Magpies signed him for 94, and he only played 4 games for him. But in 1991, just his second season, became comfortably the best broken play runner we'd ever seen in the game. And as quickly as he arrived, he was gone.
That's weird how that happens, hey?
He was just phenomenal, man. I don't know. A part of me says to compare him a bit with Andrew Walker. But, man, he was so much... It felt like he was faster. He was just... I don't have anything negative to say about him. I remember just watching... back then, you didn't get to watch every game live, but you get to see highlights. And I would always sit around and watch the Bulldogs highlights because you knew he was going to do something crazy. It's like the precursor to watching Benji Marshall highlights. You got to watch Ewan McGrady doing just random crazy feats. But his weren't with crazy footwork. It was just with insane speed and running off the mark. And, oh, man, he was amazing. And it's just a shame that he only lasted a few seasons. But he won the Rothmans Medal in 1991 and didn't even turn up for the award because he didn't think he was ever going to get it.
Wow.
So when they announced it, they had to ring him up on the phone and try and get him to come in to pick the award up. But
that's
yeah.
Funny.
I can't say anything bad about him because there's nothing bad to say. He was amazing.
It's just always weird when you get those players that they just come out of nowhere, they're amazing, and then they fall off. And who knows what it is? I mean, I guess there's some dudes where once they get into first grade and the physical grind of first grade just takes that edge off them that they had when they first come in. And then some guys, they physically change, obviously. Like some dudes physically change, they get better. Other dudes, like if you add a little bit more weight or something, it just takes your speed off and things like that. And then you've always got to think of there's always the next guy coming along is that might take your place or whatever. And sometimes the next guy is like we just said, a Julian O'Neill or one of those sorts of caliber players, and that's it. It's over, you know?
Yeah. Little known trivia fact, his brother Jason also played for the Bulldogs in the early 90s, and his niece, Jason's daughter Sharon, played for the Roosters in 2018 in the NRLW.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah.
Okay, let me throw one at you. I'm going to try and... okay, I've got one. I've got one. We could do a whole episode of this dude.
Oh, he's excited.
Andrew Henson.
How long's the episode? Is it up there with episode 21?
Just...
I literally don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I know of him, but I don't. I could not recall anything he did on the field or what he was as a player.
You don't remember the field goal for Wests?
Was that Andrew Leeds or Andrew Hinton?
I thought it was Andrew Henson that got it. I'm pretty sure it's Andrew Henson.
Was that in the early 90s?
No, that was the late 90s. This was like when they sucked.
Andrew Hinton never played for West.
I'm thinking of a different dude then. Who am I thinking of?
I think you're thinking of Andrew Leeds.
Andrew Leeds? Let me look this up. I must be thinking of a completely different dude, eh? Andrew Leeds. Wests.
He kicked the field goal for West in 95, 1 in 96 and 3 in 97.
No, I'm not thinking of him. No, because Andrew Leeds is Andrew Leeds.
Yeah, I know Andrew Leeds is. This is the field goal against which team? Penrith?
No, who was it against? I feel like it was against Norths or someone.
Illawarra?
It could have been. I can't remember. Hey, let me look up. Hang on. So West Tigers, Andrew Willis.
Andrew Willis. Hang on, I'm going to ask, have you made this error before in the podcast?
I think I have multiple times.
And I think on both occasions I said it was Andrew Leeds as well.
Yeah. Andrew Willis.
96.
Who the fuck is Andrew Henson?
He played for Penrith. So, people, before we press record on this episode, Ricky and I were talking about Formula One stuff, as we tend to do. And we sprayed into talking about NBA and stuff like that from the 90s. And he was saying, how is my head meat remembering all of these random players who were barely involved in the game from the 90s? And Andrew Hinson's another one that's just locked in there for some reason.
Just locked in. It's like Matt Daylight. What the fuck's that all about?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Round 20,
Tell me about
1996.
Tell me about Andrew Willis. Do you remember Andrew Willis?
No. I'm going to see if I can find a match report on this game because it's only the one match you're interested in.
Yeah, he kicked he kicked a field goal to win the match, and I feel like it was. I could be wrong, hey, but I feel like it was against North Sydney or someone like that. It was a game they should never have won.
Yeah, this is the one against North.
Yeah, and pretty solid 5'8", almost like a Brad Fittler sort of build. Obviously not a great player, but an all right player. Played in a terrible West teams.
All right. I'll read the match report from David Middleton's 1997 annual about this.
Okay.
West 5'8" Andrew Willis secured a place in Magpie folklore when he landed a remarkable 46-metre field goal to give his team a last-minute 23-22 win over North Sydney. The game looked certain to finish in a draw until Willis made his desperate play with 42 seconds of the match remaining. A single premiership point could have spelt the end of the Magpies' finals hopes, but victory pitched them into 8th position with 2 games remaining. Ironically, Willis was not meant to attempt the field goal. That task was set for debutant halfback William Newton, but when Newton was grounded on the fifth tackle, it was left to the 23-year-old Willis to have the shot. Willis, who revealed later that he had never kicked a field goal in his life, struck the ball powerfully and it sailed true, much to the delight of the Magpies and a vocal Campbelltown crowd of 13,000.
And it was amazing.
Oh,
it was like they all celebrated like he'd never kicked a field goal before, and he nailed it. He just nailed it so good. It was amazing. It was like a real magic moment.
Oh, yeah, and that was the only field goal of his career. He never kicked one before or ever since after. So, that's it's a pretty good one to have against your name.
How many first grade games did he play? I'm going to guess 105.
60.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Imagine having that moment. You only play 60 games. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It's good to have, a place in rugby league history that people still remember, even if they don't remember your name.
Yeah, no way.
But to have that place in history for something positive and good.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique.
I'll never forget you, Andrew Henson.
Andrew Leeds. Can't get it right.
Andrew Leeds. You're saying to me Andrew Leeds, and I'm like, I know who fucking Andrew Leeds is. What's he saying, Andrew Leeds?
We know it was Andrew, okay? But that much we could agree on.
Yeah.
We got that bit right.
Okay, give me another one. Give me one. Don't say Matt Daylight because I've got nothing.
Likewise. You know what? Mario Fennick.
Okay. Good judge of character.
I'm not going to judge that. He was pretty much on the money, wasn't he?
If you don't know, he fucking hated Benny Elias.
Yeah.
Very much a player, excuse me, very much a player, a 5 metre era hooker that managed to play into the 10 metre era pretty successfully, considering very strong, rugged defender, could smack a dude in defence. Was a very fiery player. Ended up moving into more the back row and stuff like that. It's a shame he wasn't on better teams. Once again, another one of those players. Fringe rep player. And if it wasn't for Benny Elias, probably would have played a hell of a lot of Origin footy. Obviously, the end of his career wasn't great. Ended up going to the Southeast Queensland Crushers, which were just a failure from the beginning, which is a shame for him. But really a tough dude. Really tough.
And passionate as hell.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is that it didn't matter which team he went to. The minute he put that jumper on, he was an absolute lifer for that club and everything that was important to him. He was so dedicated to the teams he went to. He was at South just as South were building up to be a strong force again in the early 90s. And they looked like they were heading that way until an absolute clusterfuck of debacles in the start of the 1990 season completely derailed the club for the best part of the next 15 years. Not that it was intended to be that way, but he left at the end of the 1990 season after just a horrible year for the club, and he went to Norse. And it was around that time that he moved from being a starting hooker to moving into the forwards, and briefly went into the back row before he really made a permanent switch into the front row. And then, if you want to see a classic example of how passionate he was about each club he played for, by all means, check out the episode of the Brisbane Footy Show. What was it, 1996? When he has an argument with John Rebo about Super League.
And was he involved in that? That's the Brisbane one. Yeah, sorry, I'm thinking of the Sydney one, yeah.
And he was pushing the case so passionately for South Queensland. He only played 11 games for him, but it shows you just how dedicated he was to every team he went to and how much he gave to them, which says a lot about his character and who he was as a person. Yeah, unbelievably dedicated player.
Yeah, no, like imagine him playing now. Like he'd be in controversies a lot.
He would
just because like he was such a tough defender.
Yeah. I personally think that Darren Centre was basically the evolution of Mario Fenech.
He probably was a bit like I think Mario was a bit of a bigger dude.
No, Mario was.
Yeah, that's what how I in my head. It's funny if you look them up, they might be the exact same size. But because Darren, Centre wasn't a small dude himself, he was a big hooker.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that. I think Centre was maybe he was a better dummy half runner, which helped him stay as a hooker for longer. I think that was probably the difference between him.
Yeah, mind you, the hooking duties when Mario was playing were quite different. Like that was back when you actually had to rake at the ball in scrums, and you had to
which he was really good at.
Oh yeah, especially against Benny.
And striking, just general striking in the play the ball too. He was very good at that as well. They both were.
Yeah.
He was very, very good at that.
That's true. Over to you.
Oh, it's my turn. Okay.
Yeah, well, I gave you Mario.
Okay. How about? I'm trying to think of. Okay, what about Daniel Wagon?
What about him?
He was an all right player. I think he gets missing a little bit because I thought he was an all right player.
I think he was another guy who was probably a bit too much put into the wrong position.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know he's put in the forwards an awful lot. He just felt like he was probably, I don't know. I think for a long time I thought he was probably going to be better served as a centre, especially in the area that he played in.
Yeah, I think his athleticism coupled with his size probably hurt him in that regard.
Most likely, yeah. So it was an interesting one. Because he did get to play Origin.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very handy player, wholehearted player, and he was a pretty good all-around sort of performer as well. Like there was no part of his game where you thought, nah, he's shit at this or he's shit at that.
Really reliable defender.
Yeah, and because he started out, he started out pretty young, I believe, as a player. So he was fairly a fair bit smaller. So he started out in the backs, and even moved. I think he played in the halves briefly. Moved into the forwards. So it meant that by the time he got to the forwards, he actually had plenty of ball playing skill as well. So he was a pretty handy player around there. Did he? Yeah. Part of me still thinks that he might have been picked in that failed 2001 Kangaroo tour, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look that up.
I can't remember.
Just remember they had such a huge squad name for that, and nearly everybody pulled out, and so there's a lot of names that were added in there. They got picked as, calling them second strings probably not fair, but
they were the next guys up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was a lot of players that were named for that tour, and a lot pulled out because obviously it happened. It got named shortly after the September 11 attacks. Yeah. So a lot of players were like, fuck that, I'm not flying over there. And fair enough too. But I think I don't know, something tells me that he was named in that squad or some squad around there.
Yeah.
I just remember that. So he was close to that area.
Yeah, I always thought he was a handy player. I think if in the right situation, he would have been a pretty handy 5'8", almost like a Dylan Brown. He probably doesn't have the running ability of Dylan Brown.
No, but I think at the time he was probably more of a, we were going through this phase of having big 5'8s like Trent Barrett, Braithen Astor, and Brad Fittler, those sort of type of bodies. And I think Daniel Wagner's probably around that sort of style of player.
Mm.
You know, the big-bodied 5'8".
Mm.
Tim Sheen's 5'8".
Tim Sheen's anybody from like, you know, that was 5'8" to 5'10" he saw them as being any position on the field.
Yeah. Sheen's had 2 rules. If you fail rule 1, you got a second chance on rule 2. And rule 1 was, does your name have vowels in it? If the answer was no, the next one was, does your name have consonants in it? If the answer was yes to one of those, you could play in the 5'8" role.
It's so funny that like that 2005 Tigers team, for that moment in time, was so elite with its mobility, because they were a smaller team, but they were so mobile and stuff. But at the same time, if you put them, and we saw it, if you move them forward 12 months, they're out of it.
Yeah.
For the same reason. They don't have the size to compete.
Well, the thing is, it was 2006 when the wrestle came into the game.
Yeah.
And the Tigers were just out-muscled everywhere.
Mm.
And they just couldn't make the meters up the field anymore. And so they did this, the tried and true failure, and that is throwing the ball around too much without making your meters upfield first.
Yeah, side footy.
And they just killed themselves.
Yeah.
It's okay, because it only took Tim Sheen's 5 years to figure it out.
Oh, man. Who's go?
Is it my turn?
Go. Yes.
We'll
do 2 more each.
Okay.
We'll do one more each.
One more each. All right.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to go with someone obscure or I want to go with someone who is like a good player.
Mate, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. Let's go with David Fairley.
David Fairley, okay. Man, this is a good one. Okay, so David Fairley, big dude, mobile. I know I say that a lot, but it's like a common theme amongst elite second rowers and forwards.
Yeah.
And it's the first thing I look for is, because you've got to have the size. He's had a real wide frame on him, and he's a real mobile dude. Got through a lot of work, but didn't get through as much work as some of his teammates, like Gary Larson, for instance, who was notorious for getting through a lot of tackles. But just a really solid second row. Another one of those guys that you can pit, almost like a Sivan Asiva in terms of like game one, you can rely on him and right through the entire season. He's just always going to do the same job. He's going to give you same quality work every single game. Was part of those Norths teams that we've talked so much about already. And just a really solid player. Like, he had a really good career. Played a little bit of rep footy as well. Was one of those guys that was kind of on the fringe of some very, very good New South Wales teams. So when he got his chance, he didn't look out of place. But he probably didn't have that elite level of talent that, say, a Harrigan did, or somebody, that would be in the side normally ahead of him. And yeah, a really good player. Like, had a really nice long career. Probably not a lot of highlight reels about him. I tell you who his game was a little bit like the second row version of Cameron Smith as a hooker. You're not going to see a huge amount of highlight reels about it, but it was just all quality work.
Yeah. Very consistent and always reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an amazing back rower. Played nearly a dozen games for New South Wales. I think he did actually play for Australia.
I think he did, yeah.
So, he was just trying to think of a more modern type player that's similar to him, and there's not many that you get these days. A lot of second rows these days can be a bit hit and miss.
I think the thing about him too is whereas a lot of modern second rowers the elite ones tend to play more on the edges. That wasn't his game. His game was definitely the middle of the field. But he wasn't a prop at that time in the game's history either.
No.
He was, whereas the prop would, I'm trying to think of how to put it.
The second rows back then played in the middle a lot more than they did on the edges.
Yeah.
The wider running second rows we've got now that's just happened with the modern game because our lock went from being essentially a big ball playing 5'8" to being a third prop. That pushed the second rows out a bit wider, so to speak. But yeah, he did play a lot tighter in the middle of the field.
He'd definitely be a prop in the modern game, though.
Yeah,
because he didn't really have that wide running game that would translate into today's game as a second rower.
No, he did a lot of that. He did a lot of the hard yakker in the middle. Did have a good short passing game on him and an offload on him as well, but just rock solid defender, rock solid runner. He's just the sort of player you need every week on your team. Like
just one of those guys. If you sign him for your team, you don't have to worry about that position for the whole year.
Yeah,
it's just like he's going to give you that every single game.
Absolutely.
All right, my go.
Your go.
All right, let me think. Who's someone interesting? Okay, Michael Hancock.
Michael Hancock, man. Bit of a guilty pleasure. I used to love watching him play.
I kind of did too.
Because when he came along, our wingers, and not to say he wasn't fast, but our wingers at the time were basically scrawny, thin, and fast as hell.
Mm-hmm. If you got a hand on one, they would crumble to the ground.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry about them powering through you.
And at the time when he came along, which was 89, and he was only, I think, 18 or so at the time, that was the first time I got to actually experience what it was like for people who were 10 years older than me to have watched Eric Groth play footy.
Mm-hmm.
Because this bloke he had the lower center of gravity, still had the pace, but he also had power, which most of the wingers didn't have at that time. So some of the footage that you get to see of Eric Groth shows him running down the sideline, and there'd only be like 35 millimeters between his foot and the sideline, and players would be throwing themselves into Eric Groth, and there would still be 35 millimeters between him and the sideline, and they just bounce off. And Hancock was very similar. Not as powerful as Groth. He was faster than Groth, but not too dissimilar in style. As he got older, he became more powerful and less pacey.
Mm-hmm.
But probably I would say the modern day equivalent would be someone very similar to Brian To'o.
That's exactly it. And one of the first wingers I can remember who got in and did that work in field, like over and over and over again, and really in that way changed how like the elite wingers were looked at, where you now had to do that work to be considered an elite winger. I can't think of anybody before him that really did it on the consistent level that he did it at.
No, he would have been one of the very first ones, absolutely. I mean, it would have happened in the 20s and the 30s because what used to happen back then is a lot of second rowers would play on the wing. So if you got injured or if you had a bit of a sore leg, they put you on the wing because most of the time when you're out there, you didn't have to run the length of the field. You just had to do the last bit of stepping at the end to get to the try line. So why not put a big bloke there who's hard to tackle? And that was the attitude. But as far as being legit wingers are concerned, he was the first in a long time to be that sort of a player. And had a hell of a long career. Played 274 games for the Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
Also played 48 games over in England. And you know what? He even chose not to play for the elite teams over there.
Who did he play for over there? I can't remember.
Played for Swinton for one season.
Wow.
Runcorn for a season.
Oh, my God.
And Salford for one season.
Oh, wow.
Actually, there's 2 seasons at Salford. 37 games there.
He'd be so perfect in today's game.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a team with him and Toto in it, man. That would be a nightmare.
Oh, he was absolutely insane.
And it's like the thing with Toto, like Toto hits the line and he just kind of keeps going for about 5 meters, just dragging guys. Like Hancock had hit the line, but then would fight through the tackle.
Look, there's the nickname that Roy and HG gave him. Do you remember what it was?
No.
3 knees.
Oh, that's right.
Like one of the most iconic visuals you'd ever get watching Michael Hancock, other than his running game, was when he was trying to get up to play the ball and he's just sitting there constantly thrashing himself against the ground. And more often than not, because he fell forward because he ran at such pace, it looked like he was just humping the ground.
Just fucking the shit out of the ground, yeah. Hey, no one fucked planet Earth more than Michael Hancock.
And the amount of penalties he got for that was remarkable.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he was a mad winger. I fucking love watching him play, man. He was great.
Possibly the person that is the reason why we hear referees yell milking.
Possibly, yes.
Game. He might be the ground zero for that.
It's possible. It's possible. But yeah, he would do that a lot. Amazing player. Started in 1988 and retired in 2000. Well, that's in the NRL. He played another season and a half in Salford after that. But yeah.
Such a good player. All right, give me one more.
One more?
I want one more, yeah.
One more. You know what? I want to end this then if we're doing one more.
Oh, man. Here we go.
On one of our favourites.
Okay.
Greg Alexander.
Okay, so one of the best junior footballers ever. Athletic and versatile because he was so athletic and he was a thin dude. He wasn't a thickly built dude. He was a thin dude. So could play fullback at a very high level, but had the skill to play halfback at a very high level. And because of that, his versatility, it might have hurt him at the time because of like the positions he was playing. He could have played more rep footy than he did. A Penrith legend, somebody that if he knocked on the door right now, what time is it? It's just coming up on midnight in Sydney. If he knocked on the door right now, I would make him a meal. And I think that he would get a meal in any house in anywhere in Western Sydney because he is part of the family. And yeah, just an absolute legend. Just Penrith through and through. And I love the man.
He still is one of my favourite players to watch. I just did a quick comparison. The first player I could think of when it come to mind as a comparison for him as far as, frame was Brett Hodgson.
Yeah, he probably was close to a Brett Hodgson, hey?
You know what surprised me?
What?
He was bigger than Hodgson.
Oh, really?
2 centimetres taller and 6 kilos heavier.
Oh, wow. There you go. You know what? He was probably, how would I put it? I think he was stronger than Hodgson.
He probably was, but he was 180 centimetres tall and 84 kilos.
We've said that he a good comparison to him would be Ponga in terms of like the versatility and a little bit of like he was a better player than Ponga. Could play both sides of the field. Obviously, being a halfback is a more skillful player than Ponga. but just the way he sort of runs and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, it's worth pointing out too, and it doesn't get spoken about much, is that when he was playing fullback in those, late 80s, early 90s, actually it was even mid 80s through to the early 90s, to be honest, the fullback role was changing. So when Greg Brentnell started taking over the halfback duties from, who was before him? Graham Eadie. The fullback's role started becoming more about just catching the ball and defusing bombs and tackling wingers. You started getting involved more in, running the ball back and a few more sort of extra things coming to the game. And then you got Gary Jack came along and you had to be a good support player. And then Gary Belcher came along. You had to be fast. You had to have a good passing game. And Alexander was there and he had all of that. The only area that he might have fallen down a little bit was he wasn't, it's rough to compare him because there was no defensive fullback like Gary Jack at the time, but he wasn't up to Gary Jack's level on defense. But as far as the attacking part of the game, he was just as safe fielding kicks as Belcher and Gary Jack. But the ball playing that he had, the open field running that he had, never really got much mention, but he was bloody good at that as well.
Just a real natural athlete too. You just watch him run, and it was just like he was built to run,
Yeah, and then it was almost like they went, we need a halfback. Let's just give this kid a go and see how it turns out. And it's just a natural transition. Like we haven't seen a transition from fullback to the halves like that since Darren Lockyer.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'd say that they're probably close to the only two who have made that transition as successfully and as seamlessly as they have. I can't think of any others. And that's where he should be considered. That should be the standard that he set at. But because of the time that he played in, we've already mentioned like 3 or 4 fullbacks he had to compete with at the time when he started. And then you throw in who the halves were at the time, and you had to deal with Steve Mortimer, Peter Sterling, Ricky Stewart, Laurie Daly, Wally Lewis.
You start to get into Andrew Johns,
Alan Langer.
Yeah, it's great. And on top of all of that, he goes through the transition from, and you think about it, as a junior, they're not even thinking 10-metre footy.
No.
So he goes from this 5-metre era coming through into bang 10 metres, right bang in the middle of his career.
Yes.
And he navigates that change. It's like if he had been playing in a more stable era, he could have had, I think, a longer career and a better career.
Yeah, and he's one person who, understandably, his career got absolutely halted in every aspect by the death of his brother. And if that hadn't happened, I don't think we'd have been talking about Paul Hoff being a test fullback, because I think Greg Alexander would have had that role.
Yeah, he would have gone into that, during that time.
And who knows where he would have gone with that, because if he was there, you'd think that, the next fullback that came along was, it was Brad Godden and then Tim Brasher and then Brett Mullins. And you'd have to think that Greg Alexander would have held his own for a little bit there.
Yeah.
So that's one of those big what if questions, like what would have happened to his career? Just how much more impressive could his career have been had his brother not passed away? Because we'll never know. But yeah, even after that, he still managed to go and play a pretty remarkable 1997. I think we'll all remember his game for New South Wales in the Super League Tri-Series.
And you think about, he's one of the big key signings for the Auckland Warriors when they come into the competition, which is like an absolute coup, a premiership winning halfback. and then he comes back to Penrith as a veteran, a real veteran, where the club's not in a good position, to be honest.
To be honest, and the thing is, okay, I think the best thing that happened for his career at that time was he went to Auckland. I think he needed to get away from Penrith for a few years.
Yeah, and there were a few players that did that. They needed to just get away, and they just needed to get away. They needed to change or something,
It's just
and I get that.
Help them process what happened with Ben and find a way to try and move forward and realize, you know what, we can't stay stuck in this moment. And he came back to Penrith and didn't just come back to Penrith and fall back into where he was before, because he got back to Penrith and the club was a mess and he had a job to do at the club. And so it kept him focused on what he had to get done there. And it wasn't just playing good footy. It was about, I've got some young blokes coming through and I need to get them up to speed to where they need to be as well.
Yeah. And did that. Like, I mean, you look at a Gower, he was kind of mentored him in how to play that halfback role, which Gower was, like he was a hooker when he came into grade, but he was always kind of being pushed towards being a halfback.
And Girdler, I guess, too, to an extent.
Yeah. And honestly, like during that time when he came back in the second stint, helped Penrith get to places on the ladder they just didn't deserve to be.
Yeah. He was an amazing player.
Yeah. One
of the three players I absolutely loved watching play when I first started watching the game. It was E.T., Greg Alexander, and Tim Brasher.
Yeah, it's a pretty good first three.
Absolutely.
He's family to anybody in Western Sydney and any Panthers fan. And yeah, we all love him, just like the heart and soul of the Penrith Panthers. So it's a good one to end on. I like that one.
There we go. I knew we had to do it right at the end.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Well, there was something else.
What?
There was a Formula One race on the weekend, and it was an absolute cracker.
Oh, yeah, I watched it. It was Piastri is the dude to beat.
I like the fact that I don't know, I keep saying it, he's so chill, but I'm starting to see Lando Norris it looks like he's starting to get the shits with Piastri, and Piastri's like, yeah, whatever, fella, I'm all good.
Yeah, well, we've talked about how Norris has that. He's got a little bit of the choke in him. I think what it is he gets emotional.
He does
when the pressure's on. I think that's what it is. Whereas Piastri doesn't. There was
there was a great moment in this race where we got to see the racing IQ of both these drivers. And it was where they were both stuck behind Verstappen. And Piastri, when he was behind him, he saw that Verstappen was constantly taking the inside line. And so he went intentionally deep to try and make it look like he was going to go the outside line on Max. Mm-hmm. So Max went with him, being inside, but also went deep in the corner. But Piastri broke earlier, so he could come back and undercut him on the inside on the exit of the turner, and he took the lead from him. It was a clean and a smart move, and it showed that he was thinking about how to get around him. And then you watch Norris, and he is scrappy and messy. And when he did do it, he did it off the track, and he had to give the place back. And you just look at it, and every time Norris has got a battle with Verstappen, you just look like Norris is having some sort of existential crisis, and he doesn't know what to do. And Piastri just goes, I was like this, bim, 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 done.
Yeah, I love that as well. It was a real veteran sort of move. Yeah. And he just keeps nailing these things where you're like, oh, this is like, he's properly quick. He looks after his car. He's just, as long as he can stay out of like losing race points by just the things that happen over the course of a season, he's going to be very, very difficult to beat. I think that it's a miracle what Verstappen is doing with his car. I think that if it was anybody else in that car, it would have been midfield at best. Like I think that he's just showing how good he is in that car, that he's even in the fight.
I mean, I don't think Yuki Tsunoda's doing a bad job in there, and he's finishing at the bottom of the top 10, which
Mm,
kind of proves your point.
And then the dude that I'm loving watching too is Antonelli. He he showed his youth in this weekend a couple of times.
Yep.
But he's bloody quick. He's just got something, and I hope that it develops as a driver, because like every so often he the qualifying in that sprint race was amazing that he got pole position, but he just the youth part of it, he kind of threw it away a little bit early on because he's pumped up about it, obviously.
Yeah.
But it'll come to him. He'll get there.
It will. Now, someone it won't come to is fellow Aussie, Jack Dawn, because apparently he's been given the arse.
Yeah, and look, it's been a pretty average start for him.
Let's be honest, though. He's basically driving around in a very slow tractor that
He
doesn't
is.
always work. And
Yes.
he's kind of being punished for being in a shit car. But, the team he's with has had Colapinto in reserves, and they've been basically trying to find a way to get him into the side for a while. So they've just used this as an excuse to finally pull that trigger. Doom was on a hiding to nothing all year, unfortunately.
Yeah, look, he a couple of mistakes. When he went into that first corner, and that was a bad mistake, and he just can't make them.
No.
You can't make them. Like, if you're a back marker and you get a chance, you just got to show that you can do more with the car than the car is capable of, even if it's not much and you're running near the back. And there were a couple of times he did that, but there was too many times where he also didn't do enough with the car. And then when you couple that with a little bit of bad luck and then a couple of bad decisions, and that's all it takes.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's Formula One, man.
That's true.
Unless you're Liam Lawson and you're just a fucking running disaster.
Oh, my God.
Like, that dude, like, man, it's been crazy with that guy. For how good he looked when he first got his chance to, like, now it's just a disaster. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I look at him and go, I wonder if Red Bull look at it and go, man, we probably should have just kept Ricciardo. Like, I think they had to pay him for this year anyway. Like, why not just keep him in?
Chuck him in there.
Put him in there until we get someone we know can take that role. It's just weird. Like, they need points, and on both the like that Racing Bull car is not too bad. Hadjar's doing a pretty good job in his debut season.
Yeah, he's all right. I mean, when you think about how it started, it's so embarrassingly in Australia.
Yeah.
And he could have, I mean, like, that's just the worst start you could ever have to your career. So embarrassing. But he's doing really well with it. And, yeah, those cars aren't too bad.
They're not too shabby. But, yeah, Lawson is slop.
Yeah. I would like to see Doohan just get to a team which is a little more settled and just, I think that he's all right. I don't think he's super fast or anything, but I think he's all right. He could have a decent Formula One career, but it's going to be hard to get back in now because he just didn't get it done. And when you get your chance, you got to grab hold of it and not let the fucker go.
Yeah.
And that mistake he made into that first corner is letting it go. It was just an opportunity, like you said, for the team to be like, well, and it's hard to argue with it.
That's right. All right. Well, we've covered all the important sports.
Yeah, pretty much.
We should put a bow on it and send this baby to bed. What do you reckon?
Excellent. That sounds like a really good idea to me.
All righty. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you send us some emails. We love reading those out. Make sure you check us out on all the socials. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. And